Okay, I'm going to paint a bit of a picture for you now. In this chapter, I want you to be honest. If I was to open up the camera roll on your phone, would I just find a whole raft of photos that you've never gone through and selected anything from? Like, are you one of those people that just take a gazillion photos and then never make any defined choices about which ones you want to keep? Yeah, I used to be in that boat. That used to be me. So don't feel guilty. It's a very common position to find yourself in. What I want to cover off in this chapter is I'm going to encourage you and show you some good practices you can get into to allow you to make some better choices about the photos that you need to keep on your phone and to discard the ones that you no longer need. It's really important to do that. You've got to get rid of the stuff you don't need. Otherwise, you're just going to be filling your phone up with lots and lots of imagery that nobody looks at. So we're going to take some deep breaths, and in this chapter, we're going to make some really good decisions about the photos we're taking. Here we go. When I shoot photos on my phone, I always prefer to shoot way more than what I need. And that's only because I want to have a range to select from. And usually I'm posting a picture on my Instagram account or Facebook page that day. So I'm making some choices and some selections right away from the images that I've just captured. If on the other hand, you take a lot of photos and you don't look at it for hours, days, weeks, maybe ever, then that's a bit of a waste. So I think what you do is you need to find a happy balance between your shooting style. Do you use the images that you shoot frequently? If so, then creating more choice and photographing more is a good thing. If you find you take photos and you very rarely use them for anything, then I would say fall into the habit of shooting less rather than more, because you don't want to make that camera roll just a confusing space to navigate. So what is the ideal number? Is there an ideal number of photos to take of a particular thing? Well, for me, I guess, when I look back through my camera roll, when I'm taking a photo of a family member, when I'm taking a photo of my mum, I probably would very easily squeeze off 12 shots to find one. So for me, that 1 dozen photos to find that one cracking hero shot is probably a good ratio. Again, the trick here is it depends on what you're photographing and why. If it's a really, really relevant, salient moment, if there's lots of things happening in it, then I'd probably shoot more. If it's a very still moment and I've already made some good decisions about what I'm shooting, I'd probably shoot less. So the rule of thumb for me is I probably shoot 12 photos to find one really cracking one. Now, sometimes making good selections in the way we shoot our photos will help us save space on our phone, but also time navigating photos in our camera roll. And what I've set up here in front of me is I've got my phone sitting here on the table. I've got another phone, which I'll turn on now so I can start recording. I've got this phone from above here, which gives us a top-down look at my screen so you can see what I'm doing on the screen. And of course my glasses, because I'll be blind as a bat without them. So right from the get-go here, if I just fire up my camera app on my phone, and again, it depends. I know you've all got different phones, you don't all have iPhones, but pretty much this same similar navigation is present in most camera apps on different brand phones. So if I lift this up here, a very normal way of taking a photo, of course, is just to press the button. And every time we press the button, it takes a photo, right? And then all of a sudden we end up with a lot of photos of the same thing. Now, you can also utilize a mode called burst mode. Now, to access burst mode on this particular iPhone, all I do is I press the shutter button and I slide it to the left. So if I go like so, you'll see the numbers inside there show that I've taken 50 odd photos already just in that couple of seconds there, right? Now that was just shooting a piece of timber, so it's going to look pretty boring. However, if I, for instance, turn the camera around to face me, here we go, and I try and do something with myself here. So if I take a couple of photos and just move around the camera and go, okay, yep, all right, so there we go, okay, took a whole heap of photos there. Now that means it'll save all of those photos as one package in the camera roll. And to show you what that looks like, if I just scroll out of that, go back into photos, I'll put this down. You can see here, if I tap on that last photo, it brings up just, I think, the last shot in the sequence pretty much. But and it's a horrible photo, by the way. Now you'll notice here, right in the top corner, it says burst, 81 photos. That shows you how many photos I took in that sequence, right? Just in a couple of seconds. Now to find which one I want to keep, if I go select at the bottom, I can then scroll through those photos and find the precise one that I like. So you can see there's a whole range of photos from when I was moving around. My face is obscured by the phone above it in some of them, you know, and then we've got somewhere I'm talking. So let's say we want that one, a nice natural one I'm sort of picking out on the side there. If I just go tick and maybe see if there's one other where I lift my eyes up a bit. Actually, that's quite cheeky. Let's do that. We'll take those two. So out of 80 something photos, I'll just keep those two. Now, if I go done, it'll give me a prompt there to say I can still keep everything. It'll allow me to keep all the photos in that burst sequence. And again, it'll just come up as one image in your camera roll. It's not until you go in and edit it that you get access to all the photos you took. So it creates like a mini album, if you like, of that one sequence. But for me, the whole process of doing this is getting rid of the stuff I don't want. So I'm going to say just keep the two favorites. And then when I go back to my camera roll, again, what you can see there is just the two shots that I selected out of that sequence. So that's burst mode. That shows you how burst mode works. It's a great way of capturing a whole heap of photos with one click of the shutter, slid to the left, sorry for you, slid to the left, and then being able to go in and make some selections from those photos straight away. Now, another camera mode that I think is really handy to explore in a similar sense is called live photo mode. Have you ever played with live mode? On my iPhone here, it's accessed by simply tapping the top right hand icon here, and you'll see I had a little picture coming up saying live, so it lets me know that live photo mode is activated. And again, if I flip the phone around to me, what happens is if I press the button, it'll actually record a 3-second sequence, believe it or not, of video. And to show you what it does, if I simply go back in my camera roll, I click on that last live photo, you'll see in the top left-hand corner it says live. Now to see it in its live mode, if I simply press and hold the photo, it'll actually record. Okay, so you see there, it actually recorded a small video snippet, but it stills with audio. Okay, here's the crazy thing. When you take a photo in live mode, it actually records, I think it's roughly 1.5 seconds of footage before you press the button and after. Yeah, go figure that out. How does your phone know to start capturing before you press the button? Anyway, that's a whole other conversation for another time. Now, if you want to, you can also go in now and edit that image. And this is another way of finding a still that you want to keep. If you go down to this live emblem, it'll bring up the whole range of frames within that little sequence. And then you can say, I want to keep, say this one. Make this my key photo. Done. So then when you search the camera roll, that is the photo that comes up first. Again, it's still preserved as a live photo mode. You can tap it to play. Okay, so it keeps all the images and it keeps the sound packaged together. And if at some point you say, hey, I don't like the live mode, you can go back into edit. You can turn off live mode up there and just keep that one single image. That's it. And then you can see live mode is no longer active in your screen. So that's burst mode and live mode on your phone. Again, two very useful ways of capturing a range of images and then being able to really quickly make some selections from that range as well. I think live photo mode is intriguing. It allows you to capture a sliver of sound and a sliver of motion with a still image. And sometimes you'll be so surprised if you've captured images of loved ones that are old or frail, just having a snippet of their sound or their voice or a little bit of motion in that image just brings back a raft of detail and memories for you. Now, I said in my opening remarks that one of the big pitfalls of taking photos is taking a range of photos and then never going through your camera roll and making a selection from those. I'm absolutely guilty of that, but I want the choice. The trick here though is once you've taken a selection of photos is to remember to make time, generally that day if you can. Find a quiet moment at the end of the day, go through the photos that you took earlier that day and make some good selections. By way of example, if we just cut back to my phone here, you can see this is some photos I took the other day from a visit to Oma in respite care. And there's a range of stills there. Now I could go through this and keep all of the photos, obviously, but that's just clogging up the camera roll and taking up space and memory in my phone. So if I simply go through and look at these and make some selections, what I like to do is I just do a quick browse through first. I look at all of the photos. I like so. Good little range of shots there, some videos at the end. And then I go through and I start making some selections. And I go, oh, that's a cheeky one. I like that little expression there. Go for a nice smile. That's a cute one there too. And I think that one as well, I like that. And from a window perspective, I think I like that one. Maybe one more. That one, there we go. So by just hitting the little favorite symbol at the bottom there, when I go back to the camera roll, it'll show me the images that I've favorited with a little heart in the corner. So then what I can do is I can go to select the others. I can tap the other photos that don't have a love heart on them. Actually, I want to keep the one where we're kissing, that's a cute one too. And then I can just go delete. And straight away, delete 10 photos. I just reduced my selection down. I got rid of 10 photos, so I freed up the memory and the space equivalent to 10 photos on my phone. That's in a deleted items folder. Now this is an important one here. The photos don't delete off your phone automatically just by going delete with a trash can. You need to navigate through your albums all the way down to recently deleted. And you'll find everything that you've recently deleted out of your camera roll is in there. If you go select, delete all, you can delete. I've got 168 items in my deleted items folder. So if I hit delete, it'll delete it. If I want to recover all and put them all back in the camera roll, I can do the same. I can just hit recover all and it'll put all those images and videos back into my camera roll again. So that's a great way of making some good decisions about culling your photos down. It gives you a second step you have to go through. You have to go to your deleted items folder to then empty those things out or to recover them back to your camera roll if you're having second thoughts. And you go, no, I want to hang on to them. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. I've got some beautiful little birds outside my window there chirping away in a tree, so you just have to put up with that, I'm sorry. What I want to talk about now is using albums in your camera roll. Albums are a great way to keep like photos together or to keep topical or photos from a subject or a person or a theme, all easy to find in the one space. It still keeps the photos in your camera roll, but it gives them a second place to be by attaching some metadata to the file to say, hey, all these photos of this particular theme you can now find in one space, one album called whatever you want to call it. I'm talking too much. I want to show you how it works. I'm going to just cut back to this phone here. We'll go back to the previous sequence of photos that I just photographed the other day when I visited OMA for the window visit. If I want to keep all of those photos in the one place, if I want to find these really quickly without having to go sorting through my camera roll, what I can do is if I simply hit select and I tap with a tick on every photo that was from that particular day, from that session. A couple of videos at the end there as well. Now if I simply go to the export function down here, bottom left, and scroll, I have a choice here. I can add it to a shared album, which is effectively creating a place on the cloud off your phone where you can store those photos, or I can add to album by tapping this, create new album, and I can say OMA window visit or visits, and hit save. So now if I go into my albums, I've got my main camera roll here and I've got a second album that's just popped up beside it here, 21 things inside it, OMA window visits. Now this album just contains all that imagery. And the fantastic thing about this example is I can now go, and whenever I take photos of OMA during a window visit, I can then add those photos to that particular album if I want to keep all that imagery together in the one spot. So learning to keep your photos in an album, keep them all in the one space, is a really effective file management approach to being able to find photos nice and fast. Now, aside from saving your own imagery into an album that you create, there's also a couple of other ways you can find photos in your camera roll, particularly if those photos were taken a while ago, or you weren't quite sure when you took them, but you know where you took them or you know who was in it. So if we go back to my phone here, we're on the albums page. If I simply scroll down, we can see here, we can search via people and places. Now, if I tap on people, what it does is it brings up common faces in photos. So it looks for for face identification in photos that I've got on my camera roll, so I can look up Omar's face there and I can just very quickly go through and see any photos, any imagery in my camera roll that features Omar's face. How cool is that? It's a very quick way of locating a shot of a person in your camera roll. Again, it works more with people that you have more photos of in your camera roll. Now the second thing you can do here, if we go back to the screen, is we can search via place, and I find this a very, very handy search tool. If we tap on places, it brings up effectively a world map. So we could go anywhere in the world and look for a particular photo. Now for me, most of my photos you can see are taken right here at home on the Central Coast. I've got 26,027 photos on the Central Coast. But I might say, look, I'm looking for a photo that I took, let's go somewhere exotic. Where shall we go? Cairns. Let's go to Cairns, top end of Australia. Now this will bring up all the photos that I've taken in Cairns. So it's geotagged them. There's some photos of Megan while she was pregnant. You know, any projects I did when I was photographing up in Cairns, I'll find them there. Some shots at Cairns Airport. Yeah, it's very handy. You can use this function to basically, as long as you can remember whereabouts in the world you've taken a photo or the place that you were, you can find photos really quickly. I've taken almost 2,000 photos in New York and videos. So if I just go to New York and click on that album, it'll bring up all the imagery that I've ever taken in New York, just because it's geotagged within the imagery. And of course, if I go back, I can zoom in on New York and I can get a bit more granular with the detail of where I was when particular images were taken. So the more we zoom in, the more detailed the information about where we took photos. Isn't that fantastic? I just love that function. Really, really handy. So hopefully you found that useful. That's a bit of housekeeping, just a couple of good habits to fall into, both with taking photos, with making good selections on your photos, and then saving your photos and being able to find them again down the track. Once you understand those things and get into the habit of using them, you'll have a far more enjoyable process going through your camera roll, locating imagery that means something to you. Now in this chapter, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through some of my favorite little tips and tricks that I use to start editing the light properties within the images that I've already photographed and that are sitting in my camera roll. Learning to take great photos is one thing. Learning the art of going in and manipulating those photos to be their absolute best is an entirely other world. And whilst I understand this is not something you're going to do for every single photo you take, it's definitely a habit you should fall into to utilize for favorite photos. So photos that really mean something to you, that you see the potential in to lift and enhance to another level, that's where you need this chapter. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be switching through to this top-down view of my iPhone sitting on the table. I'm going to open up some photos of Omar, and I'm going to show you, apply some of the favorite techniques and tips that I use to really, really lift the quality of those images. Now again, I understand you're probably shooting on any number of different phones. You don't necessarily have an iPhone like I do. You might have a much older phone than what I do, and that's okay. Most of the functions that I will show are available on most smartphones in some form or another. They might be called slightly different things, but once you access the ability to edit an image on your phone using the standard software that's already on your smartphone, you will find that there's so many different controls available to you to really dramatically lift the quality of what you've photographed. So let's jump into this phone, let's have a look, and I'll show you some of my favorite techniques for really enhancing photos that I take. So here we are, we're inside one of my albums that I created called Omar Window Visits. We talked before about how to create albums to store your imagery. If I just scroll through those photos there, I'll see that there's a variety of different shots from 3 different window visits. And one of the first things that I would do is jump into an image that I've favorited. So again, one with a love heart on it. Again, this is a beautiful shot here of Omar sitting in her chair. We're doing like a virtual little sort of huggle through the glass window. Got the reflection of the sky in the background. That in itself is a lovely shot. But if I simply go into edit in the top right hand corner, see the word edit, If I tap on that, it brings up a set of controls that I can play with to really change the look of the photo. And along the bottom here, you'll see that there's a number of different individual values we can play with. But one of the first ones that I do is I simply click the auto. So by hitting auto, you'll see straight away how much it lifts the values in the photo. And it's using AI, it's using artificial intelligence to work out what it thinks it needs to do to the photo to really dramatically improve color property, light property that's embedded within it. And what I do now is if I scroll along these little tools at the base there, any particular circle that has a yellow segment is showing me what automatic function it's enabled to affect change within the image. And one of the greatest ways of learning what the auto function does is to go to one of those circles where there is some yellow showing, and then play with this little slider on the bottom here. If I drag it to one side, it adds more of that effect. If I drag it to the other side, it takes that effect away. So on brilliance, we can see straight away by adding brilliance what it does to the image. And again, we can show you that again with one of the other qualities. So say we go to saturation. So it's only added a little bit of saturation, but we can pump that and add way more saturation to make it really oversaturated. Or we can go the opposite, we can slide to really take color away. So the auto tool is a great way to start. It's a fantastic way to understand a quick fix, a magic fix. So it's like putting a little magic wand on your image to see how you can just very quickly improve it. Now, the important thing to know is that whatever you do with your image here in this particular palette is non-destructive. So it doesn't forever take something away from the photo, and it doesn't change the photo forever. I can always go back in and turn auto off. And even if I've put auto on and I click done, and I go back into that camera roll and I go, well, I want to go back to that favorite image, edit, and I don't want the auto on. I can hit revert and it'll take me back to the original settings of the photo and take all that information off. So that's a really good thing to know too. So for most of my photography, just going in and hitting image edit and clicking the auto is a great way of getting an approximate view of how I can very quickly enhance the shot that I've taken. What I prefer to do myself is I've got a bit of a style to the photos that I take of Omar, and I've got certain things that I already know within that tool there that I love playing with. And I just want to walk you through what those things are now. So again, I start with auto, and then I scroll through past exposure to brilliance. I usually play a little bit more with brilliance and lift that a little bit more. The next value is highlights, and I usually drag that down a little bit. Go across to shadows. I go to contrast. Contrast I find a fantastic tool. If I lift the contrast, look how much more dramatic that image becomes when I lift the contrast. Again, I'll zoom in on the image so you can see what I mean. I'll zoom in there on my mum's face. If I go back to contrast, if we take contrast out, see how it becomes really pale and washy. Whereas when I lift the contrast, look at what that does to the image. It really makes it so much more dramatic, so much more just full of personality and full of life. When we see that the way it really defines her image. Again, we can just pinch and zoom to go up or down in scale on the image to preview individual parts of the image while we're in edit mode. The other thing I like doing is I go into saturation, and usually I will pull saturation back a little bit. I don't like too much color in these images. I like paring back the color value of my portraits. And the other thing I love playing with is a tool at the end here on the iPhone called definition. And definition is again a beautiful tool for really making detail very crisp. So if I just go in there and lift definition, I don't know if you can see that on this particular camera view, but it really does just add a bit more contrast to some of the detail areas of the image. There we go. So that's my image. That's the very quick fix that I normally do to my photos of my mum. So when I'm finished, I just simply click done to save all of those properties to that photo, and it'll show that there back on the white background. A quick thing I like doing is I just like tapping the photo and seeing it on a black background without any other distractions around it. It just lets me really I guess appreciate the tonal value of the photo and understand the changes I've made. Now, to see a bit of a comparison between a photo either side of what I've just done, if I simply swipe to one side, that shows you again a different photo but without any image manipulation. And then that's the photo that I just manipulated. Again, we'll do it from the other side. Hopefully you'll agree it's really dramatically improved the quality of that particular photo of Omar. So again, that's the value in utilizing the auto function to just very quickly put a magic wand over your photo and really lift the light properties from an artificial intelligence point of view, going along with whatever your phone thinks is a good thing to do to your photo. And then I've just shown you some very quick tips there for going in and playing with some of those more individual granular controls. I could spend literally an hour or two doing a video on what each of those controls do. I'm not going to do that in this very quick video here because I'll burn up your time. But what I do encourage you to do is whatever those particular individual controls are in your smartphone's edit functionality, go in and play with each of them and see what they do, and you'll find a couple of them that are absolute favorites for you as well. Now, another thing we can do in editing our photos is we can add or change filters. Now, some of you might be used to adding filters in your camera when you're actually taking photos. So you might have already fallen into the habit of taking photos with a particular filter effect that you like shooting with. Others don't like using filters. I personally don't use filters much at all, but there's a look and there's a reason for using filters, and sometimes that's a great thing to do. What I want to show you here is you can go into an image. We'll go into that same image that I was just playing with. Go image edit, and you'll see along the bottom here on my iPhone, I've got these three little circles in the base here intersecting. So if I tap on that, it brings up the filter menu. And if I simply slide along those, it'll show me what each of those individual filter settings will do to the image. So they're different color profiles. They're different ways of mapping color and light information to render a certain effect. Now, filters are probably not the best thing to use on top of an image that you've already gone in and edited. They might be better to use on an image that you've done nothing to. But again, it's experimentation. Whatever works for you and whatever achieves the end effect that you're after, that's important. Again, anything you do with adding or subtracting filters to an image is non-destructive information. So for instance, if we go in and add this filter, Vivid Warm, and click Done, then if I go back to my camera roll, I can see that our image is there. It's got the contrast values and the individual things that I did to it, plus a filter added to it. So if I simply go into Edit, I'll show you here, I can go into Filter section and I can take that off and click Done and still preserve all the other information that I'd put into the photo. So again, remembering whatever you do in an edit capacity to your photo is non-destructive information. You can always retrieve it if you need to and go back to the original shot and start again. Tell me, have you ever taken a photograph and its orientation was around the wrong way? You know, sometimes you might hold your phone at a slightly funny angle when you take a photo, and no matter which way you try and look at the photo in your album mode, it's continually spinning around and facing the wrong way. There's a way you can fix that too. So what we're going to do now is jump into this one and I'll show you the crop and edit tools that we can use. So we'll go back to this photo here, we'll go Edit. Now you'll notice on the bottom right hand panel here we have this little, what do you call that? I don't know, little cross frame with rotational arrows. If we tap into this little symbol, it brings up a number of different tools here, and I'll just show you what each of those do. In the top left hand corner there we've got a flip tool, so we can flip horizontally the image, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we can turn around from one side to the other. You have this rotation tool, and this is the one I was talking about when you've got a photo that's facing the wrong way. If you simply, every time you tap that tool, it rotates at 90 degrees anti-clockwise, and you can do a full rotation. So basically, if you need to correct its rotation, you can. The other tool along the top right hand here is a variety of different standard scale aspect ratios that you can change your image to. So along the bottom here, it's currently set to freeform, which means I can go in, I can drag this little marquee tool, and I can actually isolate any part of the image that I want to. Go back to the original if I want to. But I've got a number of different other ones I can affect here. Now this is set to vertical mode here. You can see there's a vertical little diagram there with a tick in it. I can click to square. I can do 9 by 16, 8 by 10. So these are all vertical aspect ratios. Again, we can go back to the original and hit landscape. And I can apply any number of these standard ratios in a landscape aspect ratio as well. So again, a handy thing to know, if you want to go in and actually physically change the aspect ratio of an image, or you want to change its orientation, that's the tool you use to do that. Now again, the thing to remember is, again, even cropping information is non-destructive. It's all metadata. I can go back to that same image there, I can go edit, I can revert back at any stage to the original, and it takes it back to the original crop function. One of my other favorite tools I love playing with is portrait mode. Now, earlier I mentioned in photographing tips, the value of shooting something in portrait mode if you've got that mode available to you on your phone. Not all model smartphones do, but generally if you've got a later model smartphone or a smartphone with more than one lens or a LiDAR sensor in your camera assembly on your smartphone, it'll allow you to photograph in portrait mode. And portrait mode again gives you that beautiful shallow depth of field, that soft background with bokeh dots in it to really layer the image and make it look really, really like a DSLR image in fact. So what I want to do now is I want to show you how I can play with a portrait shot photo. And this is a favorite thing of mine to do, particularly with Oma's photos, is to shoot her in portrait and to then go in and play with some of those values. Again, we'll start with our album here. I'll find an image of her in portrait mode. This one here, I'm pretty sure, there we go. We can see when we tap on an image, it comes up in the top left hand corner if there's portrait information there that we can play with. If I hit edit, again. So now what we can see is we've got our photo there, we know it's in portrait mode. In the center there, we've got the word portrait in a yellow box highlighted. Now I can turn that on and off. So this shows you what the image looks like with its portrait information embedded in it. If I turn that off, this is what it shows you the image would look like if it was just shot without portrait mode, so with no depth of light information varying the focus throughout the image. So you can see there everything's really, really crisp. If I zoom up on the background reflection there, see how those trees, everything's really, really crisp. Whereas when I turn portrait mode on, we can see we've got our faces in the foreground nice and sharp, but the background is beautiful and blurry. And it creates that gorgeous layering effect in an image. Now here's an amazing thing you can do. We can tap, see that f4.5 in the top left hand corner there. If we simply tap that, that shows us at the moment the approximate aperture that it's emulating to give us that depth of field in the shot. Again, if some of this jargon's going over your head, don't worry, just follow the process and play with the tools. That's the more important thing. So if I tap on that aperture setting there, it brings up a slider along the bottom here. If I slide this one way, it either makes the aperture smaller, which means we get a much sharper focus all the way through the image, or if I slide it the other way, it makes it more blurry. So it creates a more shallow depth of field. And you can see here straight away, our faces are beautiful and sharp, the background is gorgeous and soft and drizzly. So when I've got photos shot in portrait mode, I do love to go in and actually accentuate that shallow depth of field. And that's one of the tricks I use straight away. I love doing that. Another thing I love doing in portrait mode is I love playing with black and white. And for me, there's reasons for color imagery, but I think there's a lot to be said for introducing and reintroducing black and white imagery. There's something beautifully photojournalistic about a black and white image that really speaks to, I think, the way we view portraits of people. So I love playing with black and white imagery, and usually with my photos I either pare back the saturation and take color out a little bit, or I do it all the way and go full black and white. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go jump back into this particular image we were just playing with, and I want to show you the difference we can make by first of all taking just a little bit of color out, and then secondly by taking all the color out and going full black and white image. So to access again the color controls, I click onto this little wheel, the second dial along. If I hit my auto function, it gives me again that base of magic wand correction that I can work with. If I go into brilliance, lift that a little bit more. Now, just by taking a little bit of saturation out, once we get to the saturation tool, have a look what it does to the image. See that? So that's with saturation, just by standard. And if I just take a little bit of color out, straight away, they already start speaking to me just a lot more. I love that desaturated value in that particular photo. But again, we can go full black and white. So to do that, what I do is I take all the saturation out, And then what I do is I find I need to play with a few more properties, because once we go black and white, we do need to play with a few different values and properties of light in the image to really accentuate the black and white choice. So one of the first things I do is I go to highlights, and I see if I need to lift any of the highlights. Then shadows, I always crush the shadows a little bit. And the next one I play with is contrast. This is the big one for black and white photography. Playing with contrast is huge. So I just up the contrast. Look at that straight away. Look at the difference that contrast makes to that image as a black and white. If we take it away, it's very grey and very washed out. Whereas when we lift the contrast, it makes the black and white even more purposeful. Again, I'll just zoom in on our faces there and show you again. That's with contrast, and this is without. So as a black and white image, it speaks to that beautiful crisp contrast level so much. And again, the last thing I probably play with my black and white images is I go into the definition setting, and again, that's great for just lifting the crisp detail in the midtones of an image. So that's something I like playing with too. Definition, there we go. So there you go. Those are the very common functions that I play with within the image editing tools on my phone to help really create beautiful black and white photos. Now I encourage you to go in, and if you've never created a black and white photo with one of your color images, go in and apply some of that to a favorite image of yours and see what it can do, and see whether you fall in love with black and white imagery as well. Done. Save that. There we go. So that just shows you some of my very hard and fast tips and techniques that I use to go in and dramatically change the quality and the impact of the photos that I've marked as favorites in my camera roll. What I really encourage you to do again is there's no replacement for practice. So if you have the ability to pause this lesson and go in and find a favorite photo in your camera roll to start playing with some of those granular controls, I strongly suggest you do that, because you will fall in love with those images a second time around when you see what more is within those images that they can give. So go in, play with them. It's the only way we learn. It will dramatically increase the quality of the photos already sitting in your camera roll. Tell me, have you fallen into the trap of having a gazillion photos on your phone and never doing anything with them? Or you might print out a few photos at your local drugstore or your supermarket or your photo lab and have a couple of photos, and maybe you might have even got to the point of having a photo album printed, a photo book. But have you ever done anything with your imagery beyond that? I thought so. Most people haven't, as I don't feel guilty. Most people haven't actually stepped beyond the process of taking photos and collecting photos, and not really branching further than that. In this chapter, what I want to do is I want to give you some inspirations, some ideas for ways and things you can do with your photography that create incredibly magnetic, lasting memories. So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper. There's things you're going to want to jot down out of this chapter, things I'm going to share with you that you will want to do to the photos you have in your phone, I can guarantee you. So go and grab that, come back, press play, and watch the rest of this video. There's a fantastic app you can get for your phone. It's available on the iPhone App Store as well as Google Play, and it's called Touchnote. And Touchnote is a strikingly simple concept. Basically, it is, if you can imagine taking any photo from your camera roll, uploading it to the Touchnote service. They print that out as a postcard or as a folded card. You can personalize it with your own custom stamp, with a message for the person you want to send it to, and of course with their address. They print it off and they send it anywhere in the world within a matter of days for a flat fee. It is a strikingly clever, simple, powerful service. So this is what the Touchnote app looks like. I'm going to put it on screen for you now. Using it is very simple. You simply enter some of your own personal details, you start a profile, you upload some credit, and it only costs a couple of dollars to send a card. So it's really reasonable at the same time and very reliable. You can then cruise through a number of different ways of which you can print out your cards. I prefer just the plain single-sided postcard method. For me, that's the most direct. It's the quickest thing to get up and running. And every time I've done it, it takes me a matter of 2 minutes to get a postcard with a relevant image uploaded, a message to whoever I'm sending it to. I upload their address, and you can save addresses in there as well. In some areas and zones, you can even customize the postage stamp, and you can also geotag the card with where the photo was taken. So there's a lot you can put in one of these little beautiful cards. People that receive these cards, the feedback I get is people that receive these cards feel wonderfully connected. They feel loved, thought of. And it's a great way of getting photos off your phone and into someone's hands. And that's what I love most about this app. It has been something we've used frequently with Oma because she loves going and checking the mailbox. And if there's nothing in the mailbox, well, it's a bit of a disappointing walk. So, to be able to send her one of these cards every now and then, so when she opens up the post box, there's something to reward that activity. The look on her face is priceless. She collects those cards, those postcards. They're relevant, they're personal, they're unique. She puts them on a fridge, and she's got them on a magnet board, and she looks at them every day. So that's the relevance of these postcards. So the app is called Touchnote. Everybody that I've put onto that app has fallen in love with using it. And it's for a very, very reasonable fee, does an incredibly powerful, rich thing for the end user. Next, I want to introduce you to a photo animation service that I came across in my production industry days when I was working in commercial advertising. I used these guys for a number of corporate videos. And the service is called PicDrift, P-I-C-D-R-I-F-T. It's incredibly moving, pardon the pun, with what they do with photos. They literally will take your photo, they will digitally break the photo up in a number of depth layers, a foreground, a midground, a background, and sometimes a number of those different layers in each. And then they create a motion path through the photo to make the photo come alive, to make it feel like it's almost three-dimensional, like you're traveling through time in a space, in a frozen moment of time. I think a great way of understanding what PicDrift does is for me to show you some examples. And what I've done here is I've sent them recently 3 photos of Oma that I think will work well in their photo animation mindset. What I'll show you on screen is I'll first show you the still image. I'll hold that for a few seconds, and then I'll play the PicDrift sequence that they've created by hand of that photo. So you can compare the difference between just looking at a still image and what that little bit of motion and that bit of time travel does inside that sequence as well. Have a look at these. Now, a couple of words of note here. A PicDrift is not a free or a cheap thing to do. There's a price tag attached to it because it's handwork. There's people physically opening up your image, and they're painting out different layers and separating and animating and adding effects. So it's all handcrafted work. So it's not going to cost you a couple of dollars. So there's a certain price tag attached to it. But the effect is beautiful. It is something incredibly relevant for big moments, anniversaries, birthdays, memorials, wakes, anything, any hallmark moment in life where you have an opportunity to show something on a screen. Rather than showing a regular still slideshow, have a think about showing stills and then a combination of PicDrifts edited together into a slideshow sequence for your next big family gathering. It's something that's going to make jaws drop eyes open, and you're going to see so much love and appreciation for what these particular sequences can do. I'm going to show you a very quick recording on screen now of how I would upload a typical photo. There's a little bit of a process, there's a little bit of tech involved in uploading an image and briefing the PicDrift team on what you want them to do with your photo. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to revert through to a screen record of me uploading a photo to their service, and I'll show you the settings that I use so you can mirror that for if you want to try it as well. We simply move across to start a project. So we click on that. Then you get presented with this panel here where you can either select to start a project as a social media post, so you can have something that's either square or vertical, or a HD video project, which is what I've usually gone with, a video resolution base. So for the sake of this example, we're just going to click HD resolution 1920 by 1080. So we click on that. There we go, that uploads the submission form. So we click on the top field here where we select our pricing range. We'll go 1 to 7 photos, which is in the price bracket of $39 US per photo. We'll just presume we're uploading 1 photo. The next field along, we can specify the length of the clip. So I'm going to go 10 seconds. I like a 10-second duration on my PicDrift animations. The next one is to select a frame rate. If you're not sure, then probably click 29.97. This is just specifics for how video is played back in your country, but again on your computer and whatnot, you won't notice any difference. So a default I'd go to is 29.97 frames per second. Next field is codec. You can select from 422 ProRes or MPEG-4. Go for MPEG-4 if you want to conserve space and not have a huge file to deal with, and if it's that's important if you want to share this too. So I'd go MPEG-4. Delivery time frame you can select from the standard 3 to 5 days, or for a rush fee you can have it turned around in 48 hours. We'll just go with 3 to 5 days for now. Puppet effects. Now this drop down here is if you have people in your photo and you want them to consider moving elements of that person's body, such as arms, legs, head. If it lends itself for that, then select yes for puppet movement. If you don't want puppet movement, select no, or if you want them to analyze the photo for you and tell you if it's possible to have puppet movement, say choose for me. Light effects, I would usually say yes. That allows you to select beautiful little lens flares or light beams or sun moving through trees or glistening effects, which is a very popular thing we'll see in PicDrift animation, so I usually go yes for that. And lastly, you can select for element effects. Now this is beautifully highlighted here in the background in this shot with this young boy here on his water skis. You can see all little droplets of water being animated in that shot. That's a particle effect. So that's utilizing an environmental effect to help add another layer of realism to the photo. So I would go yes for elements. Then next you enter your email address. The field underneath that allows you to add any special notes, things you want to see happen in your PicDrift animation, or questions about something that might be possible. And then last but not least, you type in your JSON10 promo code to receive a complimentary 10% off. Then it's really easy, just proceed to checkout, you process your payment, and then they'll send you a link for uploading your photo, and you're away. I strongly recommend checking it out. Have a look at their Instagram. Their Instagram is full of spectacular before and after sequences of what they can do to photos. And if you need ideas for what you want to do with an image, have a look at their Instagram page, have a look at some of those before and after sequences, and you'll get some great ideas for some notes that you can apply to images that you want them to work on. I love using PicDrift. I will continue to use them not only for my personal projects, but also for my commercial work. I love the quality of what they produce. I love the fact that you can speak to someone, and I love the fact that they care about the work and they want to make something that means something to you. So it's not cheap, it takes a little bit of time, but it's well worth the effort. The very last tip I'm going to leave you in this chapter has got nothing to do with your smartphone or the photos on your smartphone, so apologies in advance, but it's definitely something I think fits in the subject of amazing things to do with your photos, and that is a different camera, a Polaroid camera. They've made a comeback. These are accessible, they're inexpensive to buy, they're super fun to use, and how about I actually show you how they work while I'm explaining this to you, so you can see how quick it is to take a photo. Now you can buy the film in bulk packs. They come in cartridges of 10. This one happens to be color film, rectangular color film. I've also got here a monochromatic film pack, which I haven't used yet. These are black and white Polaroids, so let's just give that one a try. Rip open the foil packet. So this cartridge here will have 10 black and white Polaroid prints in it. This one's black and white film, like I said, the other one's a color. You simply open up the back of the camera, you get the cartridge, you align the yellow dash with the yellow dot, close it back up, turn it on, and the first one is just a blank plate, so we will fire off that first shot. It's just a bit of plastic that covers the prints in the cartridge. I love the sound of those. Do you love that? I love the mechanical sound of these cameras. And that's pretty much it. It shows in the display here I've got 10 photos left. I am literally just going to take my first black and white Polaroid film right now. So let's just give this a go. Here we go. All right. Don't you love that? That's as simple as these cameras are, right? I'll turn it off again, the lens tucks away. And that's it. That's the beauty of Polaroid cameras. And you're left with that gorgeous little white square in your hand that is a magnetic tool for anyone you're with, because everyone will want to look at that square and see an image develop. Now I'm going to put a little bit of heat to it. Generally Polaroid prints develop with a combination of light and heat. So they're photosensitive, but let's just see how we go there. I'll hold this in front of me and I'll keep talking. So the beautiful thing about Polaroid films to me is they create an instantly shareable photo. So something you can write on, you can give to someone. They're a great way of getting people talking about a moment, having a bit of a laugh and sparking a conversation. Here in Australia, for me, I don't know what it might cost you overseas, but in Australia I find a cartridge roughly works at about $1 a print. Okay, and there you go, you can see an image developing. So that is the charm of a Polaroid print. The fact that you've got an image in your hand, it develops in front of your eyes. Kids absolutely love it because it makes photography tactile. It gives them something, a process of waiting for an image to appear in front of their eyes rather than just automatically seeing a digital image on a screen on a device. This is a great way of making photos something worth waiting for, something worth sharing, and a beautiful conversation starter. Polaroid prints do all of those things in the one. Look, it's a bit overexposed. It's not perfect, but you get the idea, right? That's what I love about this. It'll take you a couple of photos, a couple of snaps to get it right. I probably should have had the flash turned off. It's a bit overexposed on my face, but that's the whole nature of Polaroid prints. Basic photography, inviting you to experiment. It'll take you a couple of shots, you'll get something memorable, something you get in your hand straight away. People will love the process of seeing Polaroid photos develop, and it's something that's memorable. And above all, a tangible way of making imagery something you can put in your hands and share with generations to come. I love it.